Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Thomas, I read from staff that you're augmenting physical aids to navigation with electronic. That sounds okay, but it goes on to say reduce where possible the number of physical ATONs that require regular seasonal maintenance. I realize you have budgetary issues here, but here's my concern. You're now allowing people to not carry physical charts, and unless their own computers were corrupted, that probably isn't a big issue. But we've talked about the vulnerability of the GPS system. Congress mandated that you move ahead and look at what we might use as a backup. But we have a report from GAO that was rather critical a couple of years ago about DOT and DHS making any progress on what would be or what is the necessity of having a backup system. So I'm concerned that this is yet another step. I mean, so if I don't have physical charts, but I've still got charts, let's say, either on my computer or I've got a physical chart, and I can navigate to an actual buoy. If the system's down, great. But if we take out the buoys and we're now going to have virtual buoys, we're creating yet another vulnerability. I'm very concerned about this trend. And I mean, can you tell me where are we at in developing a backup system?
Well, thank you, Congressman, for the question. Really, two parts there. We have not removed a single physical aid to navigation as a result of our EATON initiatives. And in fact, we are augmenting our physical systems. We are looking at modernizing our physical aids. What are the buoys made of? How can we make them lighter? Because all those things drive the requirements for the cutters that I discussed that definitely need to be recapitalized. So physical aids are and will continue to be an integral part of our navigation system, and we are on record as saying that the physical aids are in fact the backup for the electronic navigation systems. We share your concern, and I know Congressman Garamendi shares it as well, with what is the national backup for our precisioning navigation and timing system. This is a piece of nationally critical infrastructure that's essential for all modes of transportation. It's essential for many utilities, for financial systems. It's essential for national defense. Our nation needs a backup system. The Coast Guard's supporting DHS in their role on the Executive Committee for Space-Based PNT. And we are confident that they are on the right track to identify the right solution for our nation, and that solution, once in place, will have utility for maritime navigation as well as for all the other systems that depend.
Do we have a timeline on when some conclusion is going to be reached?
We support the effort, and we are currently working with the NEXCOM to identify the requirements for a national backup for PNT. That document is supposed to be completed this year, and once the requirements are known, we can move ahead smartly identifying the potential technologies that might be employed to give us the backup capability.
Okay, thank you. Admiral Smith, you mentioned about that, you can use survey data that was done for other purposes if it's verified. I'm wondering, are we anywhere near technology where, we have Google Maps and they can tell me where congestion is because of crowdsourcing on the highway. Is there any potential or possibility that either, through ships transmitting real-time data as to depths? I know, let's say, for instance, recreationally, the inland waterway, East Coast, big problem, shifting bars, et cetera. If people were certified and set up to transmit data back to you real time, and is that a possibility? Is that something you're looking at?
Yes, sir. We've stood up under the auspices of the International Hydrographic Organization, and with some of our international partners, we have stood up a data center at the former NGDC in Boulder, now the National Center for Information.
Just bring that mic a little closer.
CEI. And this database allows any user to upload their trackline information, which contains their GPS coordinates and their depth readings, and will pull that information together and make it available to any user. So this is publicly in, publicly out. It is run by us, but it's not sort of controlled and more quality controlled. So we envision, this is just stood up in the last few months. we envision using this to be able to assess where the seafloor is changing and where we have problems with our charts. And perhaps, once we see how dense the data is and how confident we are, to make temporary chart changes while we're waiting for a full survey to resolve the issue.
So you would advise mariners that this is from aggregate data, you haven't certified it through an actual hydrographic survey, but caution or whatever should be exercised in this.
Yes, sir. On the paper charts, we can display it in a slightly different way through electronic systems. There's some flags that we can put on the data to indicate that it's not from a real survey.
Right.
And we use a similar type of arrangement for satellite-derived bathymetry, which we also have less confidence in.
Okay, thank you. I do want to just say as a comment that I'm very concerned about the age of the fleets being used both by the Coast Guard and NOAA, and it's long past time where Congress should take definitive action, because we're looking at crippling ourselves if we don't make these investments in new ships and the technology that could accompany them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Davis.